pjnet.tv. We are going live. It is 9 p.m. on the East Coast, and it's a brand new Monday on a brand new month, brand new week. We are recording. We are streaming live to 9 social media destinations. We are running a bumper. We have our guest waiting in the green room, counting down to Studio 8 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, good evening and welcome to a brand new week here on pjnet.tv. I'm your host, Coach Prasick, and we are going to skip a lot of the pleasantries because our guest, who is regularly scheduled for this time of the month, it is the first Monday of the month, is Doug Carter. Now, I'll be honest with you, I hadn't seen much of Doug lately, and I was a little worried about him. So I talked to him today and found out that, well, Doug, you've been vacationing in Florida, right?
Absolutely. I went back down to South Florida, took a trip to Fort Myers Beach, and down to the Everglades. Wanted to get away. It's just been so much happening, Coach. I know it just wears on all of us. It's time to get away from it for a while.
You got it.
Get my batteries recharged, get back to work.
Doug, I know that we've only got 20 minutes here. I know you are anxious to break some news for those of the faithful who attend the pjnet.tv chat room.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of stuff happening, Coach. We've got the book proposal has taken a turn for the better. Come across some work, and it's really the glue that's going to hold it all together. It's going to be more of a forensic study of evidences that are going to show where we're headed as a nation, how all of these things, these events that I keep talking about in education, the economy, immigration, gun control, the COVID-19 even, the mask, the economy tanking, where's the money going, all of it comes together. There's something that we can point to. Somebody's driving the ship, and the evidences that I have, I'm putting together, and it's going to be mind blowing when you see how it all fits. You can never unsee it once you see it. There's so much information coming in daily that I've decided to create a website to curate the content. And I lost you on the screen, but do you have that information?
Yeah, you're here. You're good.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I started this website, and I really want to do it right. I'm a researcher by nature, and I need somewhere to keep all this stuff. The internet is being censored left and right. Websites are being taken down. So what I'm presenting in the website that I'm building is primary source material. Weed through the fluff, the hyperbole, and just get down to the good stuff. The things that really matter. Who are the shapers of the world today? I want to hear from them, and I think we all need to hear from them. So I'm curating their content. Sometimes I put my spin on it. Sometimes I leave it alone. Sometimes I write my own blogs. But the new website is up and running, and I've got a lot of work to do on it still, but it's there. It's generating content.
You can get there. Doug, we've known each other for some while, and I know that you are not in that category that I am so skeptical of, that being conspiracy theorists. But not everyone who watches this program knows you as well as we do. So what would you say to those who are thinking perhaps right now, oh, another conspiracy theorist, now he's going to open a blog that's amounting to nothing more than a tabloid?
No, just do your own research, and to help you along, I'm curating the research for you. The things that I study, the things that I look at, you get to see. I'm kind of skeptical when I come across some of these, what we consider the far right websites or the far left websites, and that are full of a lot of verbal sticks and stones being thrown back and forth at each other. I can't stand that. I don't present that information to my students, and I want to give them the best of the research that I can come up with. So I'm going for the primary source material. I'm looking at UNESCO, the United Nations. I look at Club of Rome. I look at the International Monetary Fund, World Economic Forum, and then from there are lots of other groups that are associated with these groups, and I follow those rabbit trails as far as I can go with them. I do searches on Google, word searches, keyword searches, and I find the information that really is getting censored. There's some kind of a filter. There's no reason why our media is not giving you this information unless they're trying to hide something. And I want to show you what they're hiding.
Is there really a man behind the curtain, like in The Wizard of Oz, pulling all the levers?
From what I can tell, Coach, there are groups of people meeting together and they have a common purpose. You'll start to see buzzwords repetitively. Sustainable development is one, sustainability. You're going to start to hear more terms of the digital divide. You go into the economy, and you're going to hear more about greening economies and demonetizing fossil fuels. They want to divest themselves from the fossil fuel businesses. And if you listen to the rhetoric carefully across these platforms, they've all got one voice, or they're saying the same message. They are of one mind. And then you have to look back and say, well, what does the Bible say about this? This is what really scares me. What does the Bible have to say about maintaining population within the earth's carrying capacity? I've said this before, Genesis 1:28, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and use it. So why are we saying the earth is overpopulated? It doesn't make sense to me unless you're talking about reversing what the Bible says. And as I went through my research, I actually came across a quote from a person who was very instrumental with the Club of Rome. He was a former president of the Club of Rome. And in a speech in 2012 that he gave at Cambridge University, he said that we must have a reversal of the biblical way of thinking, the way mankind has thought during most of his presence on earth, in order for the world to be around for another 100 years or more. And as I read that and I understand his position on sustainability, he basically wrote a book in 1971 called The Limits to Growth. He co-wrote that. And this movement has been going on since before then. It is just now coming together. The Club of Rome just partnered with Greta Thunberg. I'm sure you're familiar with her. And
Somebody needs to take her out behind the barn and spank her. I don't think she's ever got a whooping in her life.
Well, I listened to her last year. It was 2019 when she really jumped on the scene. And I said, I've heard all of this before. And she was just regurgitating everything that I've read from The Limits to Growth. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't surprised that this year, in fact, it was a couple of weeks ago, that they announced that they were teaming up to fight climate change, urgent fight against climate change.
Do you remember, Doug, when the energy crisis of 73 and 74 came along, and Jimmy Carter, who was regardless of his politics, the man is not dumb. He's a nuclear physicist. So I remember him saying, we've got to become, energy independent because fossil fuels will be gone by the year, and I think he said 2010 or something like that. And I hear this being referred to as fossil fuels all the time. And I wonder just how many dinosaurs were there? Because there, in other words, the implication there is the fossils of the dinosaurs make this petroleum stuff we pump out of the ground, and it's finite. There's no more of it being made. There could not have been that many dinosaurs, could there, really?
No, but they're talking about carbon sources. But it's funny you said that. Last week I went to West Virginia, and just riding through the mountains and looking at all the coal mines and then the valleys beside the river, the sheer amount of coal that was piled up waiting to get on the barges. I was blown away by how much coal is in those hills. And it's been there for a long time, and they're still digging it out.
There's no end in sight. Doug, are you, in your website and in your book, or is your goal to name some names and call out some people, or are you just trying to present evidence and compare it with. Is it a worldview comparative analysis, or is this an investigative exercise in journalism?
It's definitely not an exercise in journalism. I'm not a journalist. I teach philosophy and ethics. Ethics is how we ought to live, so I'm very much concerned about how we are going to live. What is the good way to live? What is the wise way to live? It's one and the same. Philosophy is by definition philosophia. Philos, a study of, and Sophia's wisdom. I want to know what is the wise way to live. And when someone tells me that the wise way to live is the reverse of whatever the Bible says, well, the logic in me says, wait a minute, that's the opposition argument. So you're just taking a position, building your position on the opposite of the viewpoint that you just don't like. Why don't you investigate it? And I'm presenting the investigation so that people that are sitting on the fence can make their own choice. I don't think it's right that the choice has been taken away. The more evidence that we have available to us, the more we can make a reasoned decision, informed decision. It's not for me to tell anybody what to believe, but if I have the ability to give you the resources so that you can make up your own mind, I feel comfortable with that.
Well, I believe myself that there is an agenda, there is a narrative behind some of the facts that we are presented. Now, would you care to comment? Let's just look at some current events. COVID-19, wearing masks, the coin shortage, and just go through a few of them, and tell us what's behind it.
The coin shortage, for instance. A while back, I discovered that there was a plan to have a global economy, and what they wanted to do was, in the name of human rights, they wanted everybody to be at a global economic equilibrium. So if someone were to come across from another country and work in America, the money they earned, they didn't want to have to subject it to what do you call that? I'm lost here.
Conversion.
The exchange rates.
Yeah, the
conversion.
Exchange rate. Mm-hmm.
So the idea is, if you have a single basis for your economy, then everybody can have the same standard to work with. Now, each individual nation can have their own tiers within this. So you've got a main central bank, and then each individual nation can have their central bank, plural, but they all have to be at the same exchange rate. Does that make sense?
Well, no. Oh, yes, it does. It depends on the agenda. For example, I mean, what you're talking about here is a transfer of wealth. You know, when you start saying equilibrium,
yes,
things like this.
Yes.
You know, that you know, if you are in another country and you go to another country, that your money would have the same purchasing power in the country you're going to as the one you left. Is that the stated objective?
That's exactly where they want to be. That's the stated agenda. And
well, I have news for you. Governments manipulate the value of currencies.
Yes.
For political reasons.
Well, if you have one more government, what is the political reason? What is the new reason? We are facing an entire paradigm shift in the way that we think and act. And where we would have interests for our own nation to protect our people, to protect our GDP, they're moving away from a GDP-based economy to a values-based economy. So what is the best thing for the planet versus what is the best thing for generating wealth? Wealth is viewed as an enemy here because they believe that we are taxing the planet, that we have exceeded the planet's ability to provide for us. They believe that we are in overshoot. And for years, they have been calling for a dramatic reduction in the standard of living of people in the rich nations. This has been going on for years. And it's very convenient that COVID-19 has come in and absolutely wrecked the world's economies. And, go ahead.
Well, we used to have these contests called races, where you had a track of 440 meters, and some people were faster than others. And as a result, they got prizes and trophies and rewards and accolades and moved on to get scholarships and got better education and got better jobs and accumulated wealth. The poor guy that wasn't as fast as the others, now what they want to do is when the gun goes off, the slow guys get to go first until they get halfway around the track, and then the talented, the guys that worked hard, and girls that worked hard, honed their craft, sacrificed, they can now at best be equal to those that didn't.
That's right, Coach. And in 2012, this fellow that I was telling you about, his name is Jorgen Randers, former president of the Club of Rome, went on an Asian television station and gave an interview, and he said between 2012 and 2052, China would have the fastest growing economy in the world, and America would have the fastest declining economy in the world. And I wondered how that could happen. What would happen to make America fall so great? And I think we're looking at it. He predicted this in 2012.
Well, I have a question. Now, how did he know this?
Well, if you look
Is he just a prophet of some kind?
No. If you look at the United Nations and the Club of Rome writes the policies, the United Nations implements them. So they were calling for sustainable development in 1972.
Right.
They were calling for shifts in fossil fuel use, shifts in production and consumption. And then all of a sudden, the United Nations starts using their terminology. And our governments are implementing the plans that the Club of Rome put in place. You can go back through their writings, and it's almost like you're looking at a crystal ball. How did they know so much about the world in 1990 or 1980, 1970s? Somebody is steering the ship.
There is, as you are suggesting, that there is not a man behind the curtain. There is a group of people behind the curtain.
Groups,
that are
plural.
Yeah, there you go. Now, the solution?
I think it starts with awareness. Now, I don't know where we'll go from awareness, but we've got to start there. We need to know who our enemy is and what our enemy wants to do before we can figure out how to play the game or how to combat the enemy and come up with a strategy. But there's always hope, Coach. I read the Bible, and the Bible talks about these days of judgment, and we're definitely in one. We're knocking on the door of another one. We're definitely really close to what I see as the opening of the first seal, the white horse. But I'll tell you why really quickly. If you look in Revelation in the opening of the first seal, the white horse is considered a horse that conquers, but conquers through peace. White is the color of peace. And how does this horseman go out and conquer with peace? And if you compare that to the book of Daniel chapter 9, and you read that when the Antichrist comes onto the scene, he makes a treaty of peace and prosperity. Mm-hmm. And so you put these two prophecies together, and on page 2 of the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, it talks about this is a covenant for peace and prosperity for all nations. Nobody gets left behind. And then you start thinking about that vision that Daniel had of all the kingdoms of the world, and that last kingdom that we're waiting for, that divided kingdom of iron and clay, the feet of iron and clay. It's a weakly held kingdom. It's not going to be very strong. What holds it together? Possibly a covenant, a social contract. And these people at the World Economic Forum, the International Monetary Fund, are calling for a new global contract, a new social contract. And their policies are the reverse of what the Bible says. So scary times, but I'm not going to leave you with that, because the Bible always, always fills us with hope. Even in judgment, periods of judgment, there's always hope. God is always faithful to his covenant. He never leaves us, never forsakes us. But he gives us, he will tell us when judgment comes, when the sword is coming, so that we can be prepared. And I think this is the time that we need to be prepared.
You have this new website, but you've got something else new. You've got a new logo.
Got a new logo. Yes, sir.
You got a new microphone, too. I really like it.
No, I just figured out how to use the microphone.
Started using. Well, yeah. Global Change News and Blogs. Is this of your own design?
Yes, it is. So obviously that's going to be the globe in the middle, and the triangle around it has a couple of different meanings. One of those is the delta sign for science. Change. So global change. It has nothing to do with the eye in the middle of a pyramid.
Okay. How about the tripartite? The Trilateral Commission, is that part of it?
No.
Okay.
But I will have posts about the Trilateral Commission.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Doug, many of the scary things that you're talking about are hidden in plain sight.
And my job is to put those in plain sight, where they're not being discussed in our media, they're being covered up. I'm just a common person. Why am I the one to figure this out? Investigative journalists should have done this long time ago. Our politicians should have been telling us this a long time ago. They know it.
Doug, do you realize what you're up against?
Well, I try not to think about it, but it's spiritual warfare, Coach. I know it, and I appreciate all the prayers, because I do fight those battles.
Yeah. On the one hand, well, I applaud you. I'm proud of you. I respect you, and I'm glad you're on our team. But at the same time, if you are successful, and if this gets the attention it deserves, there'll be a target on your back.
Well, Coach, I like to say, well, I don't like to say it, but the truth is I've outlived a lot of my relatives. So
okay.
I'm living on borrowed time is how I'm looking at it. But when God puts this, when he shows you something of this magnitude, you can't be quiet. It's not about me. It's about everybody. And we're all in this together. The entire body of Christ is in this. And I can't not think about the woman who rides in on the beast with the cup in her hand full of the blood of the martyrs, and knowing that this sustainable development plan includes population reduction. And as we look around at the current events and we see now they're burning Bibles, they're tearing up the statues of around the Catholic churches, they are going after Christianity. And they stated very clearly that the goal of this, or this ethic, is going to be a world built upon humanism. Mm-hmm. And humanism is an anti-godly philosophy. It replaces God.
By this time next month, you'll have more, and your website will be up. I'm going to put that website up one more time on our way out, and because it's long, but it can be spelled. globalchangenewsandblogs.com. That is under construction, and it will be polished up here pretty soon. We're out of time. Doug, next month, let's follow up, because a lot's going to happen between now and then. I know you're not getting much rest. I know what you're up against, and our prayers are with you, Doug. Press forward and carry the torch, and we'll compare notes in about a month, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks, Coach.
Doug Carter here on PJNet.TV. In just a few moments at the bottom of the hour, Casper Stockham will be with us. He'll have Casper's take. I've got some work to do between now and then, including refreshing the cup of coffee that I'm working on. Before I leave, 2 questions for you. You may have heard some scary things, but you also heard there's hope. Folks, you just watched a man being bold and being brave in the face of a very powerful enemy. So I'm going to ask you two things. What is the boldest thing you've ever done for Jesus Christ? And then I might ask, when was that? Folks, the war we're in is going to require boldness, so we can never allow ourselves to be satisfied with our answers to either of those two questions.